was in Srila Prabhupada's darshan room, and it's a really impressive room. About maybe 100 devotees were in there. Srila Prabhupada was sitting on his Vyasa, well, it's not exactly a Vyasa, but a special seat, raised seat. Now, just to Srila Prabhupada's right and a little in front of him was a devotee who at the time I mistook to be one of his personal servants, but it seems it wasn't. He must have been a senior devotee or sorts, who had his japa beads around his neck, and he was chanting like that. When Srila Prabhupada noticed that, he asked him, "Where is your bead bag?" And the devotee said, "Well, it's being washed, Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada turned, as far as I remember, to Harikesh Maharaj. Although, it might, like I say, things get mixed up. And he said, Prabhupada said, "So some bead bags have been given?" And Prabhupada indicated to the next room. And Harikesh said, "Yes, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, "Well, bring one and give it to him." So then Harikesh, as I remember, he may not remember, or it might have been someone else, came and brought the bead bag, and Prabhupada said, "Give it to him." And then Prabhupada told that devotee who had been chanting like this, that always keep your beads in a bead bag. He said you should have 2 bead bags, and when one is being washed, use the other one. So that was a small instruction, but it's important. In the early days of the movement, we hear the devotees would keep the beads around their neck, but later Prabhupada introduced more rules. During the class, Srila Prabhupada said, he thanked all you American and European boys and girls for taking so much trouble to come here, which touched me. Prabhupada didn't have to say that. He was thanking us for coming, where we should be thanking him for bringing us here and making facility and for everything. Then Srila Prabhupada said in the lecture, "But you will be actually benefited if you take lessons from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami." Now I understood from that Prabhupada wanted us to not waste our time in Mayapur and be frivolous, and to really be serious about hearing and chanting there. But at the same time I wondered, how am I going to take lessons from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami? And then later, maybe, I can't remember, quite some time later I realized that hearing from Srila Prabhupada speak on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his instructions to Sanatana Goswami, that is the way that we learn from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I happened upon a darshan in Prabhupada's room. I was I don't know what I was doing. Somehow or other I happened to be up there, and I realized there was a darshan going on. It was a general darshan because devotees were just hanging out the doors almost literally. I looked in, and it wasn't any, I don't think there were any big shots in there, so I thought, well, I can go in too. And there was no space to go, but anyway, I went inside. But it was almost the end of the darshan. But the atmosphere was quite different to the classes, where class very grave and very formal, but Prabhupada was just happy to be with his disciples, and they were happy to be with him. Maybe Prabhupada didn't know them personally in the way that he knew his servants, his GPC men, but Prabhupada was just so happy, and all the devotees were very happy. And I can't remember what was being said. It might even been like some transcendental small talk. And then Anakadundabi Prabhu, who was the British pujari, very tall. He was living in Mayapur, and he came with a plate of the afternoon fruit offering, huge plate. And he was just standing at the door. Or maybe it was the evening, I seem to remember it was after dark. Anyway, he had a big plate of fruit prasadam. He was standing outside the door. And Prabhupada somehow looked over, and he said, eventually, because Prabhupada was sitting just the door was exactly to Prabhupada's left, so at some point he didn't immediately see him. And then he asked Anakudana, because he'd come to bring the fruit to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, well, why don't you come in? And Anakudana said, how can you get in with a big body and a big plate of fruit and so many people? And then Anakudana said, well, I'll just give everyone some prasad when they leave. And Prabhupada immediately, a big smile, said, they will never leave. All the devotees said, Jai Prabhupada! And then everyone knew it was time to leave. And they got up. That classic, Prabhupada is sitting on his, classic pose, Prabhupada sitting on his gadla. What do you call that? His seat on the floor. Yeah. And with the bolster at the back, leaning back with the one knee up, and a big smile, like a classic Prabhupada pose. So later I thought that they will never leave. There's Prabhupada's blessing. No one can leave Prabhupada, even if superficially some devotees appear to leave. But actually, Prabhupada's caught us. We can never leave him. He's caught us in the bondage of love. So that was Prabhupada's blessing. We can never leave. He won't allow us to leave, even if we try our very best. Prabhupada's caught us. In one of these Prahlad Maharaj classes, Srila Prabhupada said that a mother feels the pain of her child more than the child personally does, which seems impossible, because the physical pain that is felt by the child, the mother doesn't directly feel that. But the sense of suffering, that she loves her child so much, that even though the child is physically feeling pain, the mental pain that the mother feels because the child is so dear to her, she actually suffers more than the child does. She's so concerned with the child. So Srila Prabhupada, in the same way, was so concerned with the conditioned souls. They don't care. He tells them that you can become a dog in your next life, and they say, "Oh, great!" And Prabhupada says, "Well, I give you my blessing." But actually, Prabhupada's not blessing them to become a dog, but he's just trying to do whatever he really is actually suffering. We can understand from this. He actually feels the pain. That we're so dull that we don't feel it ourselves. Prabhupada feels that we're separated from Krishna. How can you be like that? He's just trying to wake us up any way. Prabhupada is trying to do that. In one lecture, Srila Prabhupada spoke about the cruelty or how heartless demons can be, and he recounted an incident which I guess you could say it's like an ordinary, everyday kind of incident, but Prabhupada had remembered it all these years from his youth in Calcutta. He saw that one man had cut the throat of a chicken, and his son was crying. And the father said to the son, "Why are you crying? It's not. It's fun." And probably in the next, I'm just adding my own little thought here, that probably in the next generation, the son who's now grown up, will cut the throat of a chicken and say to his son, the parampara of demons goes on in this way. So in this way, the father was training his child. Anyway, Prabhupada said, he just gave this as an example, that how cruel people can be. And Prabhupada said, when he said the word cruel, he just said it maybe 5 or 6 or 7 times. Cruel, cruel, cruel. He just said it again and again, and each time with more intensity. That Prabhupada was feeling that. How can they be so heartless? Just like that. Who cares for a chicken? Who cares for a chicken? But Prabhupada, he saw that such a nasty attitude, and people just take it as normal. During the festival in Vrindavan in 76, there was a big sacrifice. Big means many devotees received initiation. I was sitting there for Brahminical initiation, or what we call second initiation. So the whole yagi was going on. It was April, and it was hot. Akshayananda Swami was doing the sacrifice. He was sitting in the sun, pouring the ghee, and he was sitting so close. It was so hot. It seems to me I mostly remember the heat, but one other thing struck me. The whole thing was going on, swaha, 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 and Prabhupada leans into the microphone and says, "Stop." You don't usually stop in the middle of a sacrifice, right? The traditional brahmanas wouldn't dream of doing such a thing. So Prabhupada indicated to the back of the area in which we were all sitting, the courtyard of Krishna Balaram temple. And Prabhupada indicated there was one young woman with a child on her lap. The child was maybe not more than 1.5 or 2 years old. Prabhupada said, "This child has his hand in his mouth. He is contaminating the whole sacrifice. Take him out, wash his hand, and teach him not to put his hand in his mouth. Continue. Swaha, swaha." Prabhupada was concerned. Now, sometimes we think that these rituals, well, they're just some rituals. You just do them somehow or other. But Prabhupada was concerned that there's ritual contamination. It's a ritual, and there's ritual contamination. The sacrifice, the offering to Vishnu will be impeded. Krishna is not pleased if we don't follow the rules and regulations properly. The sacrifice has certain rules and regulations. We should follow that. And you may think, well, it's just a young child, but young child or whoever it is contaminating. Prabhupada said, train the child. Don't put your hand in your mouth. During the Vrindavan section of the festival, after the morning program and after breakfast prasadam, devotees would go out in buses to the various holy places in the broader Vrindavan area, and senior devotees would narrate the pastimes that Krishna had performed there, and great devotees had performed there. Read from Prabhupada's books, like this. Prabhupada didn't personally go out with the devotees. Now, one morning, I believe it was the morning we were scheduled to go to Radha Kunda. Srila Prabhupada in the class, he spoke very clearly and straightforwardly, and I found it a little shocking in the sense, well, I'll tell you what he said. Prabhupada said, don't think that you can imitate Haridas Thakur and just sit and chant. You have to be active in spiritual life. And I was somewhat shocked by that, because I thought, well, why is Prabhupada saying that? Because, we're not going to leave Prabhupada. I was sort of naive, I guess. But Prabhupada knew that devotees could be attracted into that which might seem good for them, but we should accept that what Prabhupada gives us is good for us, not what we think is good for us. So after the class, I heard that Prabhupada had said something, which later I found in the transcribed conversations, which supports this. That Srila Prabhupada had said that don't think that you can just go and sit at Radha Kunda and be a Babaji and just chant. Because what you'll do, you'll just eat and sleep and think of women and money and fall down. That women and money means Kanaka Kamini it's a traditional, it's a standard saying. The Kanaka and Kamini, money and women, these are the two causes of fall down for sadhus. So, and then Prabhupada said there are already enough hogs, dogs and monkeys in Vrindavan. Don't become another one. Je anilo premadana koruna prachu